Samantha Reynolds is 34 years old. She's a successful hotel entrepreneur, the CEO of Reynolds Hospitality Group, a quiet empire of luxury resorts known for elegance and emotional detail. But in her family, she's still just Sam. Not Samantha the businesswoman, not Samantha the visionary, not even Samantha the grown woman. Just Sam, the sweet one, the modest one, the girl who never quite had it in her. No matter how far she's come, they still see her through the same outdated lens. The daughter of the modest schoolteacher and the nurse, the poor side of the family, they bring up at reunions like an obligation, not an honor. Samantha has spent her entire life fighting to be seen. But what do you do when your biggest critics share your blood? It was Thanksgiving. Samantha was 23 years old. She had just landed her first full-time job at a hotel, proudly wearing a tailored blazer and modest heels, ready to take her seat at the adult table for the first time. But when she entered the family dining room that evening, Julia, her older cousin, waved her toward the folding chairs in the corner. "There's still space at the kids' table, Sam. You don't mind, right?" Samantha froze for a moment. At that table were her second cousins, some still in braces, one playing with crayons. And somehow, that's where they thought she belonged. Her cheeks burned, but she smiled. She always smiled, because that's what the nice one does, the invisible one, the one who doesn't cause trouble. Even as the room filled with laughter and clinking wine glasses, Samantha sat quietly wedged between two teenagers arguing over mashed potatoes, pretending she didn't notice the empty chair left beside her uncle at the head table. They never said it aloud, but moments like that made it clear. In their eyes, she had a place, and it was always just a little lower than everyone else. There was an unspoken rule in the Reynolds family. The bigger your house, the louder your voice. Samantha had known that since she was a little girl. She'd seen it in the way her mother, Diane, a compassionate hospital nurse, was greeted at family events. A polite nod, a tight smile. "Oh, Diane, still working at the clinic? You're just such a saint." They said it like a compliment, but always with a tone that felt like a pat on the head. And then came Margaret. Aunt Margaret never needed to announce her arrival. Her diamond necklace usually did it for her. She'd sweep into the room in designer heels, trailing the scent of imported perfume, arm in arm with Uncle Harold, the man who owned 5 car dealerships and a private lake house. People didn't just greet Aunt Margaret, they rose for her. Samantha remembered watching it all year after year, how her mother's kindness was acknowledged with pity, and Aunt Margaret's money was honored with reverence. She learned early, in this family, decency was nice, but wealth was respectable. Her birthday was in February, cold, quiet, often forgotten. Year after year, Samantha would wait. A card, a call, a message from the family group chat. Nothing. No one remembered, not even Julia, her cousin, who always remembered to post her own birthday countdown a month in advance. But every Christmas, Julia handed Samantha a small gift bag with a smirk. "I thought of you. This blouse is barely worn. Size small, just like you. You're welcome." It wasn't wrapped. The tag was still half torn from someone else's name. It smelled like another person's closet. And yet, Julia looked proud of herself, as if giving Samantha hand-me-downs made her generous. Samantha would smile, every time. And every time, a little piece of her would break. Because she wasn't angry about the blouse. She was angry that no one ever asked what she liked, what she wanted, who she was. They didn't see her. They saw a placeholder, a charity case, a girl too plain to matter. And over the years, those little cuts, they didn't just sting, they scarred. Her first uniform was a borrowed blazer, 2 sizes too big. Her shoes, thrifted. Her smile, relentless. At 21, Samantha Reynolds walked into her first hotel job not as a manager, not even as a receptionist. She was the overnight desk clerk, the forgotten shift, midnight to sunrise. When guests called to complain about broken heaters or ran out of towels at 3 a.m., and when the housekeeping staff was short, she picked up a mop, no questions asked. She scrubbed floors, made beds, rolled laundry carts down long, silent hallways while the world slept. No glory, no title, no applause. But she was learning. Every awkward check-in, every lost reservation, every angry customer. She was taking notes. Because Samantha wasn't there just to earn a paycheck. She was there to build something. And sometimes, the strongest empires begin in silence, with a woman wiping fingerprints off a hotel mirror, dreaming of owning the whole building one day. It happened on a Wednesday. The lobby was understaffed. The phones were ringing. A VIP guest was furious his suite had been double booked, and the manager on duty was nowhere to be found. Samantha stepped in. No title, no authority, just clarity. She found a solution, rebooked the guest in a penthouse across town, arranged complimentary transport, and followed up personally with a handwritten apology card. Not bad for the night shift girl, came a voice behind her. Samantha turned. Standing there was Eleanor Wright, a woman whose name carried weight across the hospitality world. Senior executive, investor, visionary. And for the first time in her career, someone important was looking at her with respect. Eleanor watched how Samantha handled guests, how she listened, how she moved. "You don't just fix problems," she said. "You understand people." From that moment on, Eleanor became more than just a mentor. She was a mirror. She reminded Samantha of who she could become, not who her family assumed she was. And that changed everything. The opportunity came with a whisper, not a trumpet. An old historic inn went up for sale, dusty, forgotten, falling apart at the seams. Most investors laughed it off, but Samantha, she saw a heartbeat under the rubble. She pulled everything she had, her savings, a risky loan, and Eleanor's name as a silent backer. She bought it, and then everything nearly fell apart. Contractors quit, pipes burst, hidden mold. And the bank, they wanted payment yesterday. She slept on site on a rolled-up sleeping bag laid over cold concrete. No heat, no Wi-Fi, no applause. Just echoes, dust, and doubt. Her hands bled from scrubbing tiles. Her voice cracked from arguing with building inspectors. There were nights she cried behind the drywall wondering, was I stupid to believe I could build something from nothing? But every morning she got up, because this wasn't about proving them wrong anymore. It was about proving to herself that she was more than what they ever imagined. The inn opened 18 months later. What once smelled like mildew and regret now welcomed guests with lavender linens, soft jazz in the lobby, and handwritten welcome notes on every pillow. Reviewers called it a miracle makeover, but it wasn't luck. It was war. A war Samantha fought with spreadsheets in one hand and a paintbrush in the other. The success of that first property changed everything. She realized something powerful. While other companies chased shiny buildings, she would do something different. She would rescue the forgotten. That's how Reynolds Hospitality Group was born, with a mission not just to run hotels, but to revive them. Old motels, shuttered inns, properties left behind. She saw potential where others saw problems, and with each one, she rebuilt her reputation, grew, quietly, without headlines, without needing her family to notice. Samantha was building an empire, not to impress them, but to prove she never needed them. The group message lit up on a Tuesday morning. Aunt Margaret, family, we're thrilled to announce this year's reunion will take place at the beautiful Mountain Lake Resort. Mark your calendars. Hearts, thumbs up, applause emojis. The family chat exploded with excitement. Wow, I've heard it's stunning. We deserve something luxurious this year. Julia, can you get us the best suite again? Samantha stared at the screen. Mountain Lake, the crown jewel of her portfolio. Her proudest project. The one she'd renovated from ruin, where she hand-picked the linens and sourced stone tiles from a 200-year-old quarry. She had walked every hallway of that place and signed every ownership paper. And now her family was booking a vacation at her resort. They had no idea. Not Aunt Margaret, the self-appointed family queen. Not Julia, who would likely assign Samantha to a storage closet again. "Just play along," Samantha whispered to herself. "Let's see what they do when they think I'm still just Sam from the hotel." And so the stage was set. By Wednesday, the group chat lit up again. Julia: "I'll be coordinating room assignments this year, like always. If anyone has special preferences, let me know by Friday." Samantha didn't even bother replying, because she already knew how it worked. There were no preferences. There was only placement. Aunt Margaret sat at the top of the invisible hierarchy. Her daughter Julia played the role of hotel dictator, deciding who deserved lake views and who got shoved by the ice machine. Last year, Samantha was assigned a shared double with two of her teenage second cousins. One snored, one vaped. When she asked if she could upgrade and offered to pay, Julia had smiled sweetly and said, "We're on a tight group budget, Sam. Let's just be grateful we all get a bed." Meanwhile, Julia and her husband enjoyed a corner suite with a private balcony. Samantha knew exactly what was coming this year, and yet she said nothing, because some lessons are best taught after the test. It came at 9:42 p.m., a private message from Julia. Julia: "Hey Sam, just checking in. Mom asked me to confirm your RSVP since we know the hospitality industry has been struggling lately. If you're tight on funds, we can totally help with your share." Samantha read it twice. Then once more, just to be sure she wasn't hallucinating. It wasn't the offer that stung. It was the tone, the emoji, the phrasing, the assumption that she, the girl who works in hotels, was probably just barely scraping by. Never mind the fact that Samantha's company had just posted record profits last quarter. Never mind that she could buy this entire resort again in cash if she wanted to. But Julia didn't know that. And more importantly, Julia didn't care to. Samantha's reply: "Thanks for the concern, Julia. I'll be there, and I can cover my share, no problem at all." She ended the message with a smiley face. Not because she meant it, but because Julia would. And sometimes that's how you win the first round, quietly. She arrived early, a full day before the rest of the family. No one questioned it. They assumed she had nothing better to do. Julia even sent a message: "Hope you don't mind checking in early for us. You can tell them to have the goodie bags ready." Samantha smiled and walked past the front desk. No ID, no credit card, just a quiet nod to the resort manager. "Morning, Miss Reynolds. Everything is exactly as you requested. All suite upgrades and room placements are in motion." She walked the halls like a queen, inspecting her castle. The wallpaper, she chose it. The scent in the lobby, her custom blend. The champagne for the welcome toast, selected by her sommelier. But no one in her family knew. To them, she was still Sam from the hotel. Plain, broke, disposable. But Samantha, she now held the master key to every room in the resort and every power dynamic that was about to shatter. The game had begun, and no one even realized they were playing. They called it the Cedar Room, but there wasn't a trace of cedar in sight. Peeling wallpaper, a ceiling stain the shape of Texas. The faint but constant drip, drip, drip of a leaking pipe above the bed. The mattress sank like a forgotten promise. The window didn't face the lake, it faced a dumpster behind the kitchen. And on the nightstand, a cracked lamp and a note. "Welcome, Samantha. Hope this cozy little spot feels like home. Love, Julia." Cozy? That's what she called this. Samantha didn't say a word. She simply placed her bag on the lopsided chair, sat down on the edge of the bed, and smiled. Because this was exactly what she expected, and exactly what she needed. They had given her the worst room in the entire resort, and they thought she should be grateful. What they didn't know, she had personally approved that room's use as storage last month, and now they'd put her in it on purpose. That wasn't a slight, that was an invitation to the showdown of a lifetime. Julia appeared at the door right after dinner, all smiles, all makeup, all fake. She peeked inside Samantha's room, scrunched her nose just slightly, then let out a giggle. Oh, wow, this place has so much character, doesn't it? Very rustic, very vintage chic. Samantha stood still. No smile, no eye roll, just silence. Julia wandered in further, as if inspecting a garage sale. She tapped the cracked window frame like it was charming. She sat for half a second on the sunken mattress, then quickly stood up, brushing invisible lint from her designer jeans. You know, Sam, I think it really suits you. It's got that humble charm, just like you. Humble charm. That phrase sliced deeper than any insult. Samantha didn't flinch, didn't bite. Instead, she looked Julia straight in the eye and whispered, "I'm glad you think so." And then she gently closed the door in Julia's face, smiling, because some wars are won with a whisper, not a shout. Samantha smiled through every dinner, laughed politely at every fake compliment, nodded when Julia bragged about her third vacation this month. But beneath the calm, strategy. That night in her moldy little cedar room, she pulled out her phone and typed, "To front desk manager. Kindly document all interactions between resort staff and the Reynolds party, discreetly. No exceptions. Thank you." She didn't need drama. She needed receipts. The way Uncle Harold snapped his fingers at the concierge? Logged. The moment Aunt Margaret demanded housekeeping redo the linens for a third time? Captured. Julia's wine tantrum at dinner? Recorded, with a timestamp. Samantha wasn't just watching. She was building a case. Because when you're underestimated long enough, you learn silence isn't surrender. It's just preparation. The wine tasting was in full swing. Laughter spilled out of the ballroom. Julia clinked glasses with Uncle Harold. Aunt Margaret boasted about her new Porsche. Not one text. Not one knock. Not one invitation for Samantha. And that was exactly how she knew they still saw her as nobody. So while they toasted champagne in her lobby, Samantha took the back hallway, past the kitchen, through the maintenance wing, to an unmarked elevator, no button panel, just a key, her key. She stepped inside. The lift purred softly as it ascended, skipping all floors until it reached PH, Presidential Suite, polished marble, a fireplace. A panoramic view of the lake her family pretended she couldn't afford. She stood alone in silence, the buzz of the ballroom echoing far below her. They gave her a moldy room. She owned the damn building. And tomorrow, they would all find out. The sun was setting behind the mountains. Samantha sat by the window of her suite, sipping tea alone. The lake shimmered in gold. Everything looked perfect, until her phone buzzed. "Mom, did you already head to the wine dinner? I just saw the others going down." Samantha froze. Wine dinner? She wasn't invited. She wasn't told. They planned it without her. Deliberately. She scrolled through the family group chat. Nothing. No message, no mention, no mistake. Just exclusion. It wasn't forgetfulness. It was intentional. And it hit her harder than she expected. After everything she had achieved, after all the times she'd smiled through humiliation, they still saw her as less than. But this time, Samantha didn't cry. She stood up, looked at herself in the mirror, and began to get dressed. Because tomorrow, they wouldn't just see her. They'd have no choice but to respect her. "Are you still staying in that little room upstairs?" Julia asked sweetly. Her voice dipped in syrup and venom. Samantha smiled. "Just for the experience," she replied. Uncle Harold chuckled, not even hiding his disdain. "Well, not everyone can afford the Lakeview suites. Don't worry, kiddo. You'll get there someday." Aunt Margaret lifted her wine glass. "Some people choose the modest life," she said, locking eyes with Samantha. "Or maybe it chooses them." Laughter followed. It was light to them, harmless teasing. To Samantha, it was familiar. painful, predictable. They still thought she was beneath them. Still thought she should be grateful just to be included, even when they barely let her in. And yet, she knew something they didn't. This wasn't their game. It was her board, her rules. And in less than 24 hours, they'd all remember this moment and choke on their own arrogance. Samantha sat at the edge of the lounge, her coffee untouched. From where she sat, she could see everything. Uncle Harold snapping his fingers at a young waiter, Julia wrinkling her nose at the complimentary croissants, Aunt Margaret barking, "Excuse me, this water isn't room temperature. Do you expect us to drink this?" The staff moved quickly, smiling, apologizing, adjusting. But Samantha saw more than just rudeness. She saw entitlement, disrespect. That same air of superiority they wore around her, they carried it everywhere. They didn't just treat her like she didn't belong. They treated anyone without status the same way. It wasn't about family. It was about power. And in that moment, Samantha understood. She didn't just need to defend her worth. She needed to show them what true power really looked like. Samantha closed the door to her private suite and leaned against it. The laughter from downstairs still echoed in her mind, hollow, sharp, cruel. She opened her laptop, clicked through files, pulled up the master reservation list. Every name, every room, every upgrade she approved without them knowing. Her hands didn't shake, her heart didn't race. She was past the pain, past the hurt. Now there was only clarity. They would never see her, not truly, as long as she played the same role. So she was done playing. "Enough," she whispered. No more pretending, no more shrinking, no more earning what she already owned. Tomorrow, the same people who once made her feel small would see her rise. She wasn't going to ask for a seat at their table anymore. She was about to flip the entire damn table over. The lobby buzzed with the usual morning chaos. Luggage wheels clicking, children running, voices bouncing off the marble walls. And then she stepped in. Samantha Reynolds, tailored navy blazer, crisp white shirt, hair pulled back, heels clicking like punctuation. She didn't sneak in. She owned the moment. Staff looked up first. Eyes widened, spines straightened. Someone whispered, "Is that?" But the family, too busy laughing, too caught up in themselves, too blind to see what was standing 5 feet away. Samantha paused at the center of the lobby. She scanned the room like a general surveying the field. No one recognized her. Perfect. Because in less than 5 minutes, they would never forget her again. The lobby was still humming when the manager stepped out. Dressed in a black suit, tablet in hand, he moved toward Samantha with a quiet urgency. Then he stopped 2 feet from her, bowed slightly, and said loud enough for the entire room to hear, "Ms. Reynolds, welcome. Everything is prepared just as you requested." Silence, like someone hit mute on reality. Julia paused mid-sip. Margaret turned slowly, confusion written on her face. Uncle Harold's mouth hung slightly open. Samantha gave a small smile, calm, collected. "For those wondering," she said, turning to the room, "yes, I own Mountain Lake Resort. Every suite, every stone, every view you've bragged about." No one spoke. No one blinked, because in less than 20 seconds, the nobody in the storage room had become the most powerful person in the building. The silence lingered like mist on glass. Then, click, click, click. Samantha's heels echoed through the marble floor as she turned toward the concierge. "Please have my things removed from Cedar Room," she said. "I'll take the presidential suite." Not a question, a statement. And the staff, they moved instantly, no hesitation. The concierge nodded with visible urgency. A bellhop rushed off. Julia blinked, trying to process. Cedar Room, that damp storage closet they let her have? Now she was walking past them all. Not in a rush, not angry, just done pretending. As Samantha passed her Aunt Margaret, she offered a polite smile. Next time, maybe let people choose their own rooms. And just like that, the hierarchy shifted. No more table scraps, no more back rooms. She was taking back the seat that had always been hers and walking into a suite that matched her worth. The next morning, envelopes were delivered. Each guest, one by one, received a personalized bill, not the usual split it evenly nonsense. This time, every glass of wine, every spa treatment, every luxury upgrade was tallied and itemized. Julia opened hers first, expecting a few hundred at most. Then she turned pale. 4,873! She gasped, flipping through the pages. Every overpriced bottle she'd smugly ordered, every extra room service snack, the complimentary champagne she thought was free, it was all there, in detail. Margaret wasn't far behind. Her invoice, $5,142. She nearly dropped it. Meanwhile, Samantha's voice floated through the air, calm and measured. This year, we're doing things fairly. Everyone pays based on what they used. Kindness was free, but entitlement, that gets billed in full. The room exploded with murmurs. A few smirked. One even clapped. And those who'd looked down on Samantha now had to look up and pay up. Later that evening, as the mountain breeze cooled the air, Samantha stood alone on the balcony of the presidential suite. Below, lights flickered over the lake like falling stars. Behind her, the knock came. First, Julia, red-eyed, voice trembling. "I'm so sorry, Sam. I didn't know." Then Margaret, arms crossed but voice softer than ever. "We may have misjudged you, but we're still family." Even Uncle Harold tried, "Let's just put this all behind us." Samantha listened. She didn't yell, didn't cry. She simply stood still. Then she spoke. "I don't need apologies. Not anymore. For years, I waited to be seen, to be accepted, to be invited to the real table. But now I realize I was building something bigger than your approval." She turned to face them, calm, clear. "I'm not cutting anyone off, but from now on, I'll only keep those who truly respect me close. No more roles, no more performances." They had nothing left to say. And as Samantha turned back toward the lake, she wasn't looking for their acceptance anymore. She had already accepted herself. That night, Samantha found her parents sitting quietly on the bench overlooking the lake. No judgment, no questions, just silence and the soft hum of crickets. Her father looked up first. His eyes glistened. "All these years, you were building an empire." Her mother reached for her hand gently, like she used to when Samantha was a child afraid of the dark. "We're so proud of you," she whispered, "but it hurts knowing you had to hide it from us." Samantha smiled, not the triumphant kind, but the one she hadn't worn since she was a little girl. "I wasn't hiding it from you," she said. "I was just waiting for the right moment, when I knew who I really was." They didn't say anything else. They didn't have to, because for the first time in decades, their daughter sat beside them, not small, not invisible, but whole. The presidential suite was quiet that evening. No cameras, no waitstaff, just 3 plates, 1 bottle of wine, and the sound of laughter that hadn't echoed in years. Samantha poured a glass for her mom, passed her dad the bread. No talk of who owned what, no apologies, no pretense, just family being what they hadn't been in a long time, present, peaceful, real. Her father raised his glass. "To our daughter," he said, voice steady, "not because she owns a resort, but because she never let the world tell her who she was." Samantha blinked, tears threatening. And for the first time, she didn't feel like the outsider anymore. She felt like the daughter who had finally come home. "I used to think I needed their approval to feel worthy, but it turns out all I ever needed was to look in the mirror and not have to look away." Sometimes the loudest revenge isn't a shout, it's silence. Not the silence of defeat, but the silence of inner strength that no longer begs to be seen. Samantha's story reminds us you don't have to prove yourself to people who refuse to see your worth. Build in silence, heal in silence, then shine so brightly their words become irrelevant. Your value was never up for vote. It was always yours to believe. If this story stirred something in your heart, if you've ever felt underestimated, unseen, or quietly rising, hit that subscribe button and join a growing family of voices that refuse to be silenced. We tell stories like this every week. True, emotional, and powerful. Because your story matters too. And maybe your moment is just one click away.